Welcome once again to Functional Medicine with me, Dr. Howard Robbins. Uh, 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 I want to say, first of all, thank you for listening, and please tell your friends about it, and uh, listen regularly. Sign in and become a partner to us in that respect, and I greatly appreciate if you do that. Um, it's the shows are free and we talk about many different health issues that you may not need today, but you may need one day in the future for someone you know and love. However, I'm going to tell you right now that today's show, everybody has to listen to, and you should tell all your friends to listen to it. It's going to be in two parts. We're going to be dealing with water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink, uh, came from a famous poem. And fact is, that is one of the problems everybody in all 50 states, at least in this country, and literally worldwide, are faced with. And today we have Jose Grullon. Um, I call him a friend. He's my waterman. He is a renowned expert on water and water problems and how to deal with it. So, we're going to be talking about what are the problems that you need to know about and then how to fix them. And that's very important. So, if you don't know why you're going to fix it, you need to listen to the show and then we'll talk about fixing it. We've been dealing with a water problem in this country as far back as I can remember. And one of the first things I did when I moved into my home is I had Jose come and redo the whole house. So I have a whole house water purification system and a special one just for my drinking and cooking water. So we'll be talking about all those kinds of things, but let's first get into what the problems are. So, hello, Jose. How are you?
Good day. Thank you very much, Dr. Howard. How are you?
I'm very good. Let's start talking
Excellent.
about what some of the, because we have limited time. Let's start talking about what some of the problems are with water. What are the what let's talk about first of all chemical contaminants and what and how they affect the body and why you need to, fix this.
Oh, yes. Well, we have so many of them to worry about, but the most um, on the surface where we, mention it so much because of emerging contaminants, things that are happening that we're not even aware of. But PFAS is one of the most spoken about. Microplastics is another one. Pharmaceuticals, endocrine, disruptors, heavy metals, um, dysfunction byproducts, for example, right? So, for example, we may have some organic material like leaf decay and sewage and things like that. Once that hits the water and it gets treated from the water district, they add chlorine on it, and then it builds a byproduct, which is sometimes even worse than the actual contaminant itself. And these byproducts can affect health in a major way. So things like this, people are not really aware of because they don't see it every day. They can hardly smell it. They cannot, detect it. It's only done or detected by scientists or laboratories when people send an actual sample of their water to a third party laboratory where they have no say on what they find is just what it is, black and white. So people really rely on that, and that's how we like to also test our systems to make sure that they actually do what it's supposed to do. Because unfortunately, the market is really just about revenue. It's all the marketing gimmicks that people just sell things here and there, and they don't really do anything. They may just feel that they're doing something, and they may look nice. And the way the marketing really works, right? Psychology and so forth. But essentially, no filter is the same. I mean, a filter from a big box store versus online versus someone in person, it may differentiate in big ways. And
Well, let
most of
me
them are built with carbon-based systems, but they don't really they call it purifiers, and they're not, because it doesn't really purify, just filtering the water, filtering some things. But most of the cases, what we're looking at is that with cancer, with ingesting medications from the trace minerals and trace medications from the tap, because our water is recycled. One drop, goes a very long way. And especially in places such as Long Island, where we are now, Long Island, New York, and other places where they have groundwater, such as Connecticut, Pennsylvania. Most of our places are the source of water is the ground, it's not river. New York City is mixed, but they have mostly river water, so surface water. So it's less affected in comparison. But still, anything can fall on it, right? We've heard many horror stories about people, doing their business in rivers, and that river tends to be the drinking source. um, so when it comes to groundwater, the water goes through, in other words, in my house, I have a cesspool. I don't have sewage, and I'm sure your house has a sewage. Um, because you're closer to the city, so I guess you have that infrastructure. We don't have that infrastructure here yet, and they're looking into implementing that. They've been talking about it for a few decades already, but it takes that long for people to, pull triggers. Um, when it comes to cesspools, all that waste sifts down through the soil and eventually reaches the aquifers. Back again, the water that we used on the tap goes through the whole waste system and reaches the aquifers. The aquifers eventually, collect all that contaminant. And it's not specifically every contaminant that we throw down the drain. But for example, I'm guilty of it. Before I started getting involved in the water industry, I didn't know better. I didn't know that dumping oil from, a car, because I used to do my oil change myself. I'm like, I'm saving money. This is when I was a teenager, yeah. And I didn't realize as to why we had to dispose of it, correctly. I would just dump it in the backyard, or maybe even drain somewhere. Paint, instead of putting it in the patio, because paint will actually, make the patio look ugly, right? So I would rather dump it in the drain. And I would do that, and that eventually goes to cesspools and aquifers, and all that has contaminants. I mean, you will never drink from a container that had car oil or paint. But unfortunately, a lot of people still do it, and because they're not really educated. And once I became educated, I'm like, oh my goodness, what have I done? I had tenants who would dump, medications down the toilet because they want to dispose of it. Like, you're kidding. So all this eventually gets into the water. And unfortunately, the water district does an excellent job on what they have to do. EPA standards, they do a very good job on implementing these policies, because otherwise we would have a chaos. And the thing is that these policies are not exactly perfect, at least not for everybody. The maximum contaminant levels are measured in certain ways, and mainly is the cost involved on removing contaminants, the ability of removing it, the real estate space for the water industry, how big can it be? You know, if you put a big water purifier, it may not fit in that specific, warehouse or land that they have specifically for that purpose. And all these limitations draw the policies and levels of contaminants, that are incorporated. And every 5 years or so, they add like 3 to 10 different contaminants that they want to monitor, control, if they are able to. But, small levels of lead are not acceptable. But can they actually make it zero? Impossible. And at the point of exit, which is their facility, it may get, to a real good number, let's say. By the time it gets to your house, it's not the same.
Well, that's one
It
of the
goes through a
problems.
release.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's one of the problems. We have an aging infrastructure where the pipes that bring us water to our homes can be 50 to 100 years old or
Oh,
more.
yes.
And the pipes are breaking down. There's corrosion of these metals that they used way back when and not knowing that they would be dangerous. So even though it may leave a facility healthy, by the time you're right, it reaches our home and we turn on the tap, it can be a serious problem. And then the other source for water is bottled water. Give a couple of minutes about some of the problems with bottled water because people don't realize it.
Absolutely. So, bottled water became a convenience. It's a convenient matter of convenient way to, carry water with you everywhere you go. It's a great thing to have because, if you get if you get thirsty and you are driving somewhere, you're far away from home, you want to get, something to drink. If you have a water bottle, okay, so you drink it, that's fine. But, people don't realize that the way they're made, it's really not healthy as well. So, first of all, start from the beginning. The bottle itself, most of these bottles are plastics. 99% of the water bottles out there in the market are plastics, whether they're the bad plastic or the good plastic or the better plastic, but still they're plastics. They release microplastics and they release other contaminants such as petroleum, right? Especially if you leave it in the sun. A few days ago, I went to a supermarket and I saw a car parked next to mine. I actually parked in there next to theirs, and I realized that there was a Poland Spring bottled water in the front, dashboard. I'm like, oh my God, I wish I could leave a note. Hey, keep it away from the sun. But the thing is, even if you don't keep it away from the sun, you never know where this bottle was before. So by the time it was filtered or purified or whichever method they did to, create that water, the bottles themselves are normally displayed in the supermarkets and they're normally in front of the store, which maybe the sun hits it. And if you realize that gets pretty warm in there. So long story short, these bottles are releasing chemicals because, the heat makes it happen, right? It's how also plastics are molded and created by heat. So with heat, it also gets, diffused and melted and so forth. And all that gets into the water. I remember years ago, I had a pack of water, went to Florida, and I put it in the trunk of my car. And again, this was before the water industry involvement. So it was like in the year Y2K, year 2000. And that water tasted so good in the beginning. But by the time I was done with my trip, like 2 hours later, it tasted horrible. I could taste the plastic in the water. And I thought it was, just the brand and so forth. But no, it turns out that, it was the water itself collecting all this contaminant from the bottle. So that's one thing, the bottle itself, the plastic. The other thing is the quality of the water inside the container, whether it's glass or metal or, you know, whatever container material, the 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 way that is made for the most part is filtered water. So it's equivalent to tap water without maybe the chlorine, without the smell, without the sediment, without the taste of what you see in or feel or experience in tap. And they bottle it for you and they charge you. But some brands go beyond that because, you know, they know that people are getting more savvy about, hey, this is not a good water bottle or good water quality. So they go beyond that, which they use reverse osmosis. By the way, reverse osmosis is it. A lot of people think that reverse osmosis is not a good way to purify water because it removes the minerals. We can talk about that in a few minutes, but all I can say is those minerals that reverse osmosis is removing are toxic. Those are not good minerals. They could be calcium, magnesium, iron, any mineral that is supposed to be good for your body, but the ones coming from pipes are not good. They're toxic. The ones from soil, from plants, those are the ones we want to have. You know, they're calcium from pipes and calcium from soil is two different things. So, going back to the bottles, the best method that I've seen is when they purify with reverse osmosis, they pass it through UV light. We can talk about UV light as well in a minute. And then they make sure that they bring the pH to a decent level. It doesn't have to be alkaline. Alkaline is preferred. It tastes better, but it's not really the goal per se. The goal for me is neutral, you know, homeostasis. You want to allow your body to work well. It's like having a nice paved highway and you see your car running, you feel like there's no noise, there's no, you know, bumps, there's no rocks hitting the car. Just a smooth ride. And that's how your body should go, right? When it comes to ingesting anything, whether it's food, drinking liquids, or breathing air. If we have a very acidic water, some bottles are like that, unfortunately. Even though they're purified, they may be acidic. They may be in the lower side of 7 pH. They may be in the upper side of 6 pH. Those are, if it's above 7, it's okay. But if it's now, when it drops, you know, 6.9, so every digit is like 10 times the amount of effect in the body in terms of the pH. So purified water doesn't mean everything, but it means a lot. And I can give you an example. So we have companies around Long Island, especially stores, that all they do is they're focused in selling, you know, alkaline water. I'm not mentioning names because it's not really the way that I want to speak about others. It's more about the systems, right? So when people focus on alkaline water and they think, oh, you know, let me test the water on these bottles, and they find that, let's say, Essentia, which is my preference, right? Essentia, the brand. It's like a black label. It's like essential without the L. That is purified, that has the alkaline, it tastes great, the plastic is stronger, and so forth. You know, I mean, worst case scenario, if you're in the airport, maybe that's the one to go for. But people focus on alkaline water and they don't realize that alkaline water can contain, I can just tell you, gray water or sewage water can be alkaline. Would you drink it? Nobody, right? So the thing is, purity is the first thing. That's the main thing. Even if it's acidic, I'd rather have pure water than non-pure water alkaline, because I can compensate for the acidity by eating well, by eating greens, vegetables, very alkaline meals, and balance everything. But if I have alkaline water with contaminated, you know, contamination in it, then I'm doing a disservice. I'm not really, I'm defeating the purpose. And plus, I'm paying so much money, right? For the water, because they charge a pretty penny when it comes to, even if you're a member, eventually you have to carry these things and bring it to your house, and they sell by the gallons, and it's glass. Fortunately, it's glass, and it tastes good. By the way, it tastes very good. But if you bring it to laboratory, you're gonna find that there are, traces of metals, traces of, byproducts, because they're not removed. There, the way they're making the alkaline water is with ionizers, and ionizers are a decent way to enhance the water, but it's not a way to purify the water. So ionizers are good for places where, in my mind, the water source is from a river, from a surface, not from the ground, because you don't know what you're getting from the ground. And if you're just filtering it, barely filtering it, because you need those minerals from pipes to get through into the ionizer, that's how the ionizer has to work, by finding those minerals. If it doesn't have any minerals, it won't be able to ionize. So it ionizes the minerals because they have a negative and positive charge, and then they separate them. And the plates inside, they work on with voltages, electromagnetic fields and so forth, and they basically bring all the negatively charged minerals on one side and the positively charged minerals on the other side. And that's how you make the alkaline and acidic, when you choose 9.5 and 4.5 and so forth for different purposes. But it's not really purifying. It's allowing all these minerals. It's just not giving you the taste of the chlorine and VOCs and so forth. But it's not purifying. So that's why I'm thinking, people are just not really understanding that purification is the number one thing, and then enhancing it. So when it comes to bottled water, you want to make sure you have the one that are on a glass, that are purified, that have maybe minerals in it, that contain a pH, of 7.3 or so and above. It could be anywhere up to 9.5. I wouldn't drink, 10 too often. That's only if you really need it for a headache and so forth. And I would avoid a high pH made with ionizers, because that also increases a lot of electrons in your body and may harm you,
Yeah, well,
at least for some people.
let me just say a couple of things, because we're almost done. This show is almost over.
Yeah.
Most people walk around with a blood pH that's acidic, which promotes bacterial infections and problems like that. It
100%.
promotes cancer, um, which is obviously on the rise in this country. Um, these chemicals and everything that we're ingesting are harming us slowly but surely and making us a very sick society. Glass is ideal if you're going to use a bottle that is made of plastic, and very few will come this way. You have to look at the bottom of the plastic bottle, and there's a triangle
See the
there.
number.
And the only number you want to see in that triangle is the number 1,
One.
because that's PETE plastic, PET plastic, which has been tested worldwide by every organization to show that it's, from what we believe to be, leach proof. Leach proof. Nothing leaches out of PET plastic that we know of. And more
Nothing's
important,
100% either.
but nothing is 100% exactly. It's probably the best way to go, but ideally it is glass. And so in any case, we're making ourselves sick because we're ingesting all these chemicals, and all these companies that make water bottles out of this soft, crunchy kind of plastic. It's as dangerous as you can get. You're right. They're taking it from springs, they call it, from this spring or that spring, which is river water that's coming through
Yes.
a filter system into their factory. And they put it through filters and they just fill the bottles up and send them out to you. And you're right. You don't know how hot they're getting, whether the chemicals are coming out of the plastic. Whether it's a very serious, dangerous problem. People don't realize how dangerous it is and why we're such a sick society today and why we're so susceptible to all these illnesses and diseases. Um,
Yeah, for the most part, it's because of the chronic exposure of all these contaminants. It's not about one contaminant being a certain level. Is about all these other contaminants everywhere that we touch, that we breathe, that we experience. Altogether is causing these illnesses. It's not just the chlorine, for example.
yep.
Um, there's so many others. So we have to just make sure that we minimize as much as possible everywhere we go. That's all.
Well, there's more that we can do about it. We're going to end this show now. Um, and in part two, we're going to talk about what you can do about it, what you really can do to help drink. I mean, you can live without food for as much as a year. Gandhi proved that. You can live without water for a couple of weeks and without oxygen for a couple of minutes. But water is, and keeping I mean, the human body is 70% water, give or take any tissue or organ in your body. How can you be a healthy person if you don't, if you're dehydrated? And many people walk around that way. So when we come back to part two, we're going to be talking all about how you can fix, what you can do at home, and how you can
Yes.
ensure that you're going to hopefully stay healthy and stay well. Jose, if people need to reach you and they don't listen to the second show and they have questions and want to know more, how can they reach you?
So they can reach us by our website because we have a AI bot in there. So that's purifiedsolutions.net.
Okay.
And the local number 631-482-7792.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure
Thank you.
speaking with you about this. Everybody, listen. If you need to reach me, you could reach me in my Manhattan office at 212-581-0101. That's 212-581-0101. Or email me at ozone doctor, OZONEDOCTOR at yahoo.com. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy, stay well, and listen to part two of this show. It's vital that you hear this. Bye bye now.
Indeed. Ways to control it. Thank you.